Welcome everyone to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where we are your resource for education, connection, and collaboration. And today I have with me Gabby Wnek, and she is a licensed clinical social worker and a somatic experiencing practitioner. And she brings over 8 years of experience or expertise in guiding high achieving women through the challenges of burnout, anxiety, and trauma. And with a holistic approach, rooted in somatic therapy, Gabby helps individuals clear out burnout and cultivate a deeper understanding of their nervous system, paving the way for lasting healing and transformation. Gabby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, we're talking about burnout and anxiety, and that's what you specialize in, mostly because you struggled with it yourself. So, would you like to share with us a little bit about your journey with that?
Yeah, definitely. Now that I've reflected a little bit on my journey because I'm on the other side, I've noticed that I've had multiple instances of burnout. This has kind of been something that has happened to me multiple times actually. So I grew up as a anxious child, had anxiety pretty much my whole life, struggled with overachieving and perfectionism. I always had to have straight A's in high school and college. Like I remember crying over getting a B in my child development class, even though an 88 is amazing, not in my eyes. And in college, I actually developed chronic pelvic pain, and I had no idea what was going on in my body. I went to every doctor, got every scan, you name it, and everything was normal. And eventually I realized that I had mind body pain. And so my brain was sending pain because I didn't want to feel big, scary emotions such as fear and rage and a lot of fear that I
Yeah.
have in my system.
Yeah.
And so, what happened is I ended up still dealing with that and the anxiety as I graduated from college and I started working in community mental health. And community mental health is can be challenging because clients have really big, severe mental health diagnoses, and clients have a lot going on in their lives. And I was also doing my 3,000 clinical hours to sit for my exam. And so it was a lot. And not only deal with I have no idea what I'm doing because they just kind of throw you into the deep end. They're like, okay, start working with clients. And you're like, I kind of know what to do on a book level, but not on an experiential level.
Say first one's always scary. I'm pretty much with anything until you just kind of just get the feel of it. But yeah,
Exactly, right? Like you kind of just have to do it in order to learn it, but doing it when you don't know what you're doing can be scary. So it got to a point where it was just really challenging to deal with the anxiety and the pain. And I actually found a clinic in California that specialized in pelvic pain. And so I took a sabbatical and I went and they taught us meditation and physical therapy. And I came home and I realized I can't do this job because I can't hold space not only for myself because I'm dealing with a lot and not feeling good in my body, but also for clients. And so this cycle kind of continued for a while as I kept working on the pain. And so the burnout really didn't hit significantly until the last job I was in, which was 2 years ago at this point. I was chasing my company's bonus
hmm
and I earned 5% of whatever I earned from insurance that year, which now that I look back at it, one, wasn't a lot, and two, it wasn't worth it, really, at the end of the day.
yeah,
But this was around November, 2 years ago, where I had a client, a regular standing client that would come in every week, and he would, stand in front of me, and I just looked at him and I went, I don't care what you're talking about. Like I don't care. Like you can just can you go? Like I don't really want to be doing this right now. And I went, Gabby, like this is not okay. This is dangerous. You
yeah,
don't care. Like this is not okay. This is not how a therapist should be feeling towards their clients. And so I went to my supervisor and I told her I need to go home. And I also knew in the back of my mind that going home, even that day, or even if I gave myself a couple of days off, or even let's say a week and I went on vacation,
right.
wasn't gonna solve the problem, right? I think a big myth in people who are burnt out is that we can just go on vacation for a week, sit on a beach, and come back and everything's worked itself out.
Well,
And
yeah, for some, I mean, that can work and they can regenerate, but you
yeah,
have had years of this building up. It,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, with severe how severe my burnout it wasn't going to work. And for a lot of
right,
people it doesn't. Like you said, for some it might if it's not that severe if we're in the beginning stages of burnout. But where
right.
mine was, like we had a bigger issue. And so this kind of cycle continued, and because I was still in so much pain and I was seeing 7 to 8 clients usually a day, and I was taking on so much, I would come home with 9, 10 level of pain. And so the only thing that helped me to sleep was a Klonopin. And I took that every night for months. And it made me feel like a zombie.
Yeah,
I wasn't myself because it numbs you out, right? I mean, that's kind of what the medication does, and it lives in your system for at least 24 plus hours,
right.
if not longer. And so it was hard, and I got to a point where I just said, Gabby, enough is enough. Like this is I can't keep sacrificing my physical and mental health for a job. Like this isn't okay, and I'm not okay, right? So if I'm not okay, I can't keep helping my clients. And so I ended up quitting my job, and it was one of the best decisions that I've made. And I ended up finding coaching. And I was like, oh, there's a better way of helping clients. Like there's a better way of doing this, without having to see anywhere from 25 to 33 ish clients a week, depending on the week. And so, it really showed me that I was abandoning myself at the end of the
Right.
day because I was seeing so many clients. I wasn't taking care of myself. I barely had time to eat. I was like scarfing food down between clients, barely being able to go to bathroom, trying to drink water as much as I could. And so, but at the end of the day, I was still not giving myself what I needed in order to release all of that trauma that I was holding on to for my clients.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think a lot depends on what kind of person you are, too. I mean, some people can kind of compartmentalize, or they say they can.
yeah,
But if you're more of an empathic person and you feel more, you actually take on that other person. And that's hard being in that industry, taking
it
on
is.
mental health and then having your own. Would you say with that experience with your client, was it it was it that first time that you recognized that you were experiencing burnout or hadn't quite figured it out yet?
Yeah, I think subconsciously I knew that I
Hmm.
was getting there, and it happened before, but not to that extent. But I think that was the first time where I really realized that I was like beyond burnout at that point. And
Right.
being the personnel or having the personality, the trauma responses that I have, I'm the type of person that goes to my breaking point, and
Hmm.
then I can't anymore, right? And then my body's like, okay, you're done. But
Right.
it takes me going to that breaking point to realize that something is wrong. And I think a lot of people who have burnout, like that happens, right? I mean, or
They do.
pain or anything else, right? We go to our breaking point, we just go, go, go. I mean, I think we're kind of also socialized as a society to kind of just go, 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 go until we can't go no more. And then it's like, but that's not helpful, and it's not healthy really to do
No, I
that.
call it getting caught up in a rat race because I don't care what it is, it's one rat race or another, but we stop taking care of ourselves somewhere in there, and next thing you know, you just you
Exactly.
lost all that time. So
Right.
how did you overcome your burnout and anxiety?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one for me was just quitting and then giving myself time to do my own healing work, right? To regulate my nervous system, to do meditation, to work on that part of myself that was really scared that if we ever go back to work, we're going to do the same thing. And so
Right.
being able to talk to that part and be like, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for abandoning you. And I promise, like, this is never going to happen again.
Yeah.
Right? And really reassuring that part of myself that was really scared, which she was. She had every right to be scared.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, yeah, that's a scary time. I mean, when you do that, or especially, and I don't know if you actually said that out loud to your client or if you actually just thought that, but
No, it was all in my
yeah,
brain. Yeah,
yeah.
no,
I was be worse if it actually came out, but I'm like, yeah, it's because sometimes we think things and we just like get so zoned out. It's like, oh, was that out loud?
yeah, oh my gosh, I would be mortified if I actually said that to my client.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also did actually have another client that at one point was like, she told me later in our in when we were doing therapy, she's like, yeah, I was getting a feeling that something was off. I just didn't know if I could say it. And I was like, okay, multiple clients were like feeling that, right? And
Yeah.
like that's not what we as therapists want to give off. Like that's
Well,
just not
see, and that's a good point there too of taking care of yourself because
right.
we always think we're putting on like our best face and we're doing this, but when there's something really wrong, it shows through, whether it's your body language or,
Totally.
whatever you may think you're pulling it off, but people that are used to and around you will notice. But
Exactly.
unfortunately, a lot of them don't say anything,
Right.
or ask. Now, you
Yeah.
mentioned meditation. So, what strategies or practices did you find most effective during your healing process?
Yeah, I learned how to meditate at that clinic that I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
There was a psychologist there that taught us meditation, and he taught us how to meditate. We were all laying down in these sleeping bags. We all looked like cocoons. Like we were all just like nestled in a room together. All of us were highly anxious, highly in pain. But he taught us to meditate. That feeling of when you exhale and your body kind of just sinks, like that
Mhm.
kind of feeling. So he told us to meditate like that. Just focus on that exhale, focus on that release that your body is doing. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I did it, I was like, okay, are we done? Like he did 20 seconds, and I'm like, we're done, right? We're done. We're not gonna do it anymore. We're good for today. And he just kept going and going, and it felt like torture. Torture. I'm like, when are we gonna be done with this? And it was terrible. And we did it again, and the next day, and the next day, for 6 days when I was there. And in all honesty, it took me a year and a half, twice a day, every day, to get to 45 minutes.
Wow. But the thing is even though you were waiting for him to be done, you still came back and you stuck with it.
Exactly,
Why?
because I knew that this was partially my ticket to the way out. Like I knew I did so much research and I knew about meditation. It just took a while, and that's the thing.
Mhm.
It does. I always tell clients to start off with like 10 seconds and just being able to focus on your breath. Like, where do you feel it the most? Through your nose, through your chest, or in your belly? And your mind is naturally just going to ping pong away because it's our brain, it's our monkey mind that just does its thing. And so our job is to just come back to our breath. And it really is this like redirecting all the time, so many times until you train your brain and your body to just focus on your breath. And
Yeah.
eventually you'll be able to calm your mind down because I can. And I mean, it's taken years of practice, and breathing is such a good way to regulate your nervous system too.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. We don't, our body just does it for us versus taking conscious awareness to our breath.
Yeah. And that's a really good point because it took you years of
Yeah.
ruining your health and doing all this stuff
Yeah.
and being the go-getter. You want it fixed tomorrow, but it doesn't fix tomorrow. It takes time and it takes
No.
work.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
that consistency, right? I mean, I would try different modalities,
Hmm.
and I'd be after 3 days, I'm like, oh, it doesn't work. It's fine. It's never gonna work for me. And I'm like, that's not how that works. Like it takes consistency, and trust me, consistency is so hard. I think a lot of us struggle with consistency and creating that
Yeah.
habit because it takes over 2 months to really create a habit.
Yeah.
It's worth it though. At least
Yes,
it
it
has.
does. And if you've created any kind and you've stopped and you start to feel those things coming back, and if you can sit there and remember, it's like, okay, when I was doing this, I didn't have this. So it's kind of like restarting.
Exactly.
Have you ever had to do that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I restart all the time, even in my meditative journey. Like there are days where I don't, and then I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, time to get back on the wagon again. I mean, we're human, right? It's hard to do something every single day. I think we can for certain things, and then I think we have to be compassionate with ourselves when we don't, or when we fall off and then get back on again, because that's so normal. Like we're
Yeah.
human, right? And just saying, not beating ourselves up for it, but being like, it's okay. Like I didn't do it today. I'm okay. I'll get back on it tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Versus being like, oh, I can't believe I didn't do that. It's like that's not helping you, right?
It's not beating us up, but and like you said, there's some things we do every day with no problem. So it's
Right.
kind of creating that habit and saying that this is not selfish, this is what I need, and make
Exactly.
that one of those things that you do. every
Right.
day.
Yep.
What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned from your journey through burnout and anxiety?
To take care of myself and how important it is to figure out what your needs are of your own body
Hmm.
and that like moment to moment awareness, right? So maybe in one moment I'm anxious and I need to meditate or I need to go outside for a walk or I need to exercise or I'm hungry, like being able to really take the time to listen to your body and your mind and give it what it needs literally moment by moment because it changes all the time. Like no nothing ever stays the same. That's another big thing that I learned is that things can change
Hmm.
quickly if you put in the work and nothing ever stays the same. Things are
Right.
always changing around us. Like that's like the one constant thing in our life is change.
Yeah, definitely. Not everybody likes it, but
I know.
if you can embrace it, I think it goes a little smoother.
I think it does because I think a lot of us resist whatever's going on in our life, and I did for a very long time until I. It took a while to kind of embrace anxiety, burnout, pain,
Yeah,
and to be like, it's here to teach me something. So if I soften into it versus being like, I don't like this. This is terrible. Like that just makes it
worse.
worse for us. Like it's harder.
It is. It
Life is
is.
already so hard.
I think people get comfortable. They like their comfort zone and
Yes,
they like things the way they are, but the world is constantly evolving and changing.
always.
So, yeah, eventually I tell people if you don't evolve and learn, you're going to get left behind because the world's
Right.
not going to stop for you.
Nope.
But can
It's
you
not.
share a pivotal moment that shifted your perspective on stress and well being?
I think it was really like when I quit and
When
when
you
I
quit?
had, yeah, when I had that space for myself and when I started traveling and I took I did a yoga retreat in Costa Rica and just being able to like be in nature and like just be in the moment doing something like I was on the beach collecting seashells. We have that in common. Like we love anything
Uh-huh.
beach related. And
Yep.
so I was in Costa Rica and there was just like the whole beach was filled with seashells and I was in heaven. I was like, oh my gosh, I could die. I'm good. Like I have found every seashell that there is. And so just being able to take that time for myself and how important that is because I don't think we just do that enough and being able to do the things that we enjoy and not thinking that it's selfish because it's
Right.
not. You know,
No.
you have to fill your own cup. It's so important. Resting is so important in whatever the way that looks like for people.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people. It's different for everyone.
Yeah,
Meditation helps a lot, and meditation does not necessarily mean home. But when you focus on your breath, you can at least shut your brain off for a few seconds, and like you
yeah,
said, you work it up to a few minutes because if you're
right.
focusing on your breath and how it feels going in, your brain isn't going to sit there and be thinking about 10 million other things.
Exactly. Right. And if it does, because it's going to, because that's
Hmm.
inevitable, your job is to just come back to the breath and what it feels like. How does it feel like for the air to come in and out of your nose? What does it feel like for your chest to expand and then contract again? Like it's bringing things back into the body so that we're not using the mind because our body gives us all of the answers. We just
Yeah.
don't listen to our body as much as we're just not taught to listen to our body.
I was going to say, and taught. I don't know about you, but stuff like that was never taught in
Nope.
school. In school when I was growing up,
Nope.
those things were just.
Or with
It's
our
been
parents.
around for thousands of
Yeah.
years, but it was never taught. It's not
Nope.
discussed.
Nope. It never is because again, I think our parents didn't really know about it because it wasn't ever talked in their generation. And then, like you said, I mean, I think mental health is now being talked about in schools, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But it definitely wasn't when I was in school. And so none of us really knew. I didn't know I had anxiety until I was in college.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's nice to know the reasons why you have the anxiety, and not just throw a label on them and throw medications at them for it either.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I know our society is very good at doing that. Not to say that some people don't need it, but there are other things that you can do when you can recognize it and figure out what's causing it.
Totally. And if people need medication and it helps them, great. And there are also so many other modalities and so many other techniques and coping skills that can be so helpful if people want to do it naturally. So it's really everyone's choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know we have a lot more to discuss. I know we're going to be talking about some things that you can do for yourself to reset and the importance of self care, but we have to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Hey, we got soul. Oh yeah, we got soul.
So, Gabby, tell us, what are some things that you do for yourself to reset?
My biggest thing is exercise. I've noticed that strength training for me recently has been amazing. Just being able to move my body, do a little bit of walking on the treadmill, and then strength training. I used to do a lot of yoga, which is amazing. I love yoga. I think it's very good to help us come back into the body. But for
Mhm.
me, strength training recently has been amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and that's a different type of workout, strength training, for anyone that's ever done that.
Yeah,
So,
it's weights. But again, yoga is amazing. Pilates is amazing. Honestly, for me, even just going outside and taking a walk or just being in
so
the sun is so beneficial for me. Again, it's movement, being outside, nature. What a great way to connect. Putting your feet into the grass to like
yeah.
ground is amazing as well.
Yeah, I've been taught that by some of my people, and other people call it woo woo, and I'm like, they told me that it's like, oh no, you got this. You either need to go outside and put your feet for at least 20 minutes in the grass, or in the grass, or go hug a tree for 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, let's put the feet in the grass because I got ticks in them trees. Oh my God,
True.
not
I
not
mean,
hugging a tree.
even if you do it for a couple of minutes, right? I mean, it's all about how do we take our awareness? Because sometimes when we're anxious or overwhelmed, we feel our body isn't a safe place because there's so much going on within the body. So, a great way is to just connect with the outside. It could be looking outside a window, it could be just sitting in the grass. You don't have to do it for 20 minutes, but it's just enough where you can feel what it feels like to have your feet on the grass, your bum in on the ground, like your body just being able to feel the connection. Or even right now as we're sitting, right? Like what does it feel like to sit in a chair? Right? Can you feel the connection between the chair and your body? Right?
Right.
It gets you out of your mind and into your body and into a place that might not feel for most people activating, right? Because it's just sitting.
Yeah.
It can't act Sitting can be activating for people, and if not, like maybe it's like, what does it feel like to put your palms together? Like again, it's these little ways that we can get back into the body without it being overwhelming.
Yeah. So, how important would you say self care is in managing stress and preventing burnout?
It's so important, and I think it's more than just a bubble bath or I'm gonna do my nails or get a massage. Like those are great. If you have the resources for that, go for it. Absolutely. I think it's also some of the smaller things, right? It could just be, again, connecting to yourself, putting your hand on your heart and taking a couple deep breaths. Nourishing food, sleep is so important, right? Like being able to have like a sleep routine and getting good quality sleep, right? Drinking water, like some of these basic things that I think sometimes we forget about that are also just part of self care because we have a body and we need to take care of this temple, right, that we
Right.
have, that this body that we've been given. And so those smaller ways, those more, those things are essential, right?
Yeah.
Just being able to do those things and then adding meditation, yoga, walking, breath work, things like that that take up a little bit more time. Journaling, for example, these things that also help more emotionally as well.
Yeah, like I tell people, some people it's like woodworking or working on cars, or if it's something you love.
Yes.
For me, I finally took back up my cross stitch. I haven't done cross stitch in years. I've had stuff, but it's something I love to do. So I sit there and do that. But it's
Totally.
amazing how we get so far away from doing things that we love because we get so busy
Right.
doing all of that.
Yeah.
So would you say through all of this experience and everything you've learned that you've really learned to kind of listen more to your body and what your
Yeah.
body's telling you?
Yeah. I've really learned to listen to those messages and also being able to sit with whatever my body is giving me. Right. So if something is activating for me,
Mhm.
then I will, like, a lot of times things come up here in my chest, like it kind of just tightens. I will sit with that tightness and be like, hi, you're here. What, how are you? What can I do? Like, what do you need from me? How can I listen to you? Right. It's the same thing with the pain. When the pain gets higher, like I have learned to sit with it and be like, hi, you're here. Right. And just have that compassionate attitude towards it versus being like, oh, you're here. Why are you here again? Seriously? Right?
Yeah.
That compassion that I've developed with myself and with my body of like, my body's trying to protect me. Like, how beautiful that our body, through stress, anxiety, burnout, all of this is just protecting us. That's its sole job. Our sole job of our nervous system is that we survive.
Yeah.
And so if we look at it as, oh my gosh, it's this intelligent body is just protecting me, I think that shift in perspective for people can be so important because it's not trying to hurt you, it's trying to help you in the only way it knows how, which is through anxiety, anger, pain, you name it.
Mhm.
It just wants to help you, right?
Yeah, and it can show up different for everybody. I mean, for me, I've had episodes of like, because I don't get heartburn, but if I'm upset or stressed about something, even if I don't think I am, and I start to get heartburn, then I
Yep.
have to stop and take a look and it's like, okay, what was I thinking about, or what am I? And you have to sit and you have to kind of readjust. For some people, it's back pain or different kinds of pains.
Yep.
Not to say you might not have had an injury, but normally
Right.
you're if you didn't have it and all of a sudden it's there, then I would say it's time to kind of reflect on what are you doing and why did that suddenly show up?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing with pain is we always want to get it checked out. Like if it's something new that you haven't had, please go to the doctor and check out that there's nothing structurally wrong with your body. Right? Because we always
Yeah.
want to rule out anything structural. And if there's nothing physically wrong on a scan, a test, then most likely it is connected to your brain and your nervous system and your emotions. And like you said, that's where we have to kind of sit with it, reflect, journal, do those coping skills that are going to help us process that emotion so that we can get it out so it doesn't stay stuck in the body because
Yeah.
it does. It stays
It,
there.
it, it, it does. I've talked to a number of people and I never really thought about it, but if you've had previous traumas or childhood traumas, trauma can
Yes.
actually live in your body as pain and it doesn't necessarily show up as anything. It's just a matter of you having to deal and figure out how to deal with your trauma and get it released and move
Yeah.
on.
Exactly. Because what happens with trauma is that we don't discharge the energy. So, as humans, we have our prefrontal cortex in the front of our brain, which stops that. Versus in animals, it's all instinct. So, if an animal goes into freeze, for example, in nature, and it's like, oh, I need to freeze, there's a predator. What the animal's going to do, it's going to shake the energy out
Yep.
and then it's going to run away. Versus as humans, we don't always have the ability to release the stuck energy, which is why that energy stays in our body and can be pain or can be anxiety or can be depression or can be all of these things because we didn't get a chance to discharge that energy because
Right.
things get in the way for us
Yeah.
humans.
It's amazing how that works. So, how would you say your career has evolved over the years in relation to your personal experiences and your burnout?
Yeah. I have shifted into seeing less clients and I started my coaching business. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way of seeing clients and helping and really doing this work And I found it through coaching. It's similar work, except I can really specialize in burnout and anxiety, which
Because
I
you've been
have
there.
because I've been there. Exactly. Like the best coaches are people that have experienced the experience, right? Because they get it. Like they understand. Like it took me years to find my coach that I have right now. She specializes in pelvic pain. She's been through it. She's on the other side of it, right? And
Right.
so, I'm changing my career and having more work-life balance where I can create that for myself, where I can create a life where I can travel and I can find adventure and I can have a more flexible schedule, but still help people, because I really think that's why I'm here on this earth and on this
Hmm.
planet, is to be of service. I
Right.
just want to be of service in a way that I'm taking care of myself so that I can take care of other people.
True. That's because we always say it's like you can't take other care of others unless you take care of yourself.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Exactly.
no, I 100% agree with you because it's difficult if you're going to someone that's never experienced, what whether it's a death or a grief, trauma. I mean, if you're going to go to someone that's never experienced it and they're just like kind of giving you textbook answers, and it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, you'd rather speak to someone that you feel can at least relate. They won't truly understand because they're not
Right.
you, they're not in your
Right.
skin, but
Yes.
at least maybe they can relate to, what you're doing
Right.
and what
Yeah.
you've been through.
Right. I mean, again, like you said, we don't all have exactly the same experience, and it might show up in a little bit of a different way. But if you have someone who's been through something very similar, they're still going to understand you more than someone who's never been through it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what changes have you made then in your professional life to better support women? Because you work mostly with women, or do you work with men too, or is it just mostly women
I
that are
work
dealing
mostly
with
with
similar challenges? Mostly
women.
with
Yeah,
women.
mostly with women. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, again, creating a business where I can just have that balance, where I can, you know, do things that are still scary, for example, and like creating this business is still scary for me. It's still a growth point for me.
Hmm.
And knowing that there's a bigger purpose here, right? And a lot of us coaches go into the coaching business to do the work and not necessarily to do all of the back end stuff of the business anyway. So it's just really creating a new life for myself and being able to create that. Because I think, at least for me, if you told me when I first went to college that I would have my own business, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm going to be a therapist for the rest of my life. Right. And
Right.
so it's like reconstructing this narrative that I had about how my life was going to go. And now it's
Yeah.
completely different. Right. And kind of being able to work into stepping into like being a business owner. Right. When I never thought that was going to happen in my
Yeah.
life.
But that's like one of the changes we were talking about. Because, like, when I went back to school and stuff, no one talked about being an entrepreneur and running your own
Right.
business. They talked about going to get a degree and go work for somebody.
Exactly.
So, but being an entrepreneur is its own rat race too. I tell people it's like military rat race. There's entrepreneur rat race. There's the regular rat. We just get caught up.
Totally.
So,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's all an adventure.
how do you stay connected to your own healing journey then while helping others? Because when you are helping others, it's tough because I don't know if you're the type that's going to be taking it on and stuff. So how do you keep yourself connected through all that?
Yeah. I think the big thing that I used to do as a therapist and I continue to do now is to have like a kind of energetic boundary, right? Of like when I'm in session with clients, like what's nice with telehealth is that there is a screen, right? So like their stuff is staying on that side of the screen and it's not coming towards my energy field. Right. So that's a
Mhm.
big thing, especially with people who are in the service industry, because it's so easy to kind of soak in other people's energy and what they're going through. And so when I finish doing my note, I don't think about clients. Like it is like kind of like a close, like close the door essentially. That's a big
Okay.
part. And then again, it's going back to all of those practices, right? Taking care of myself moment by moment, doing all the things that bring me joy. Like I crochet. I think we might have talked about that before.
Uh-huh.
Doing that, I do diamond art. I spend time with my friends and my family. I have 3 nieces that I love spending time with. Going to new restaurants, just doing things that I enjoy that bring me joy, because that also fills my cup, and that it's helpful when we have things that we can like look forward to and things like that.
So your clients that you work with now are pretty much all online?
Yes. Yeah.
Just, yeah. So you just feel that you can help them better that way. Well, plus you can connect to people from all over.
Exactly. I think that's the cool thing with coaching is that you can find people all over the world, right? I think I was more limited to my area when I was doing therapy versus like
Mhm.
telehealth services. I can work with someone from New Zealand or from Australia or from anywhere in the US, which I think is cool. There's a bigger reach than with
Yeah.
therapy sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely opens up a lot. What advice would you give to women who are currently struggling with burnout and anxiety?
That things can change. And really, one of the big things that I do with clients is that we work on an inventory, right? So being able to look at different areas of our life and where we feel stuck or burnt out in, right? Is it your career? Is it your romantic relationship? Is it family relationship? Is it friends? Is it in parenting? Is it finances? And looking at those areas and being like, what is it like now and how do we want it to be? And then giving options in each of those areas because our nervous system loves when we give ourselves an option or even a couple of options
Right.
because then we don't feel stuck, right? Because when we have one option and our nervous system's like, oh no, we only can do this for the rest of our life, and then we just that you can already feel overwhelmed by that,
Hmm.
right? Versus if you give
Right.
yourself options, our nervous system is like, oh, there's this and this and this. Like, I'm not stuck. Okay, cool. Right. And you can just like it's like instant relief when we give ourselves that. And so really teaching the nervous system that there's a way out. Like we don't have to feel stuck. Is something that I do with clients to help them realize that there are even little tweaks that we can do within our life to decrease some of that overwhelm and that burnout and anxiety that we're feeling.
Yeah, and that's definitely a different perspective because if you look at it in the other world, like when you look at certain things, people say, look, you can't give people too many options. It just overwhelms them. So there's kind of you think there's maybe kind of a fine line in there.
I
You
think so.
have,
I think it depends on like where we're at and what we're experiencing. Because I think, yes, I think if we are overwhelmed, too many options, like, oh my gosh, it's like there's too much, right? But I
yeah,
think when we feel stuck in particular, when that emotion is coming up, it's helpful to have options because then there's a way out and we don't have to be in one place forever. Because I think our brain goes into that like very doom and gloom, like this is it, I can't do anything else with my life. And it's like, well, hold on, right? We
right.
can just put up some boundaries here and it might lessen the load. I'm not saying that people have to make these drastic changes. Like I needed to quit my job, right? And I was able to financially with the support of my parents. Not everyone can do that. So it might be I need to work a day less. I need to change my work hours. I need to change my department. I need to create boundaries in my relationship. Like there are smaller things that we can do without being like, I quit. Doesn't always have to be that.
No, that's true. That's like I told people, it's like I needed a new environment. Not everybody puts their house up for sale and just says, I'm moving and don't even know
Exactly.
exactly where I'm going to end up, but the house is already under contract. Most people
Right.
go search for a place first. I'm like, yeah, no, my heart of hearts, I knew it was time to go. And,
Yeah.
those I tell people, it doesn't have to be that drastic.
Right. Exactly. And I think for some people, it has to be, right? To like really
Right.
create that change. And for others, that's going to be way overwhelming. And so we need to do like baby steps and like get people to the outcome that they want in a smaller way, in a what we call in somatic experiencing a titrated way, a little bit at a time, and then we back
Yeah.
off, and a little bit more, and then we back off.
So really, when you get to know people, you get to meet people or get clients. I mean, I'm sure not everybody is necessarily a fit for you, but you can
Yeah.
kind of find out if it's something that you can support them with and meet them where they're at.
Totally, totally. That's why doing like a discovery call, for example, can be super helpful, so that so the client can see if I'm a good fit, and then if the client is a good fit for me, right? And making sure that before people invest, that it's something that they're gonna benefit from.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because in the end, I mean, what's important to most of us, and at least most of my guests, all the guests I know that I've had on here, that's our main goal is to be able to support and help others,
yes, right.
and not just at any cost. So.
No, and I want it to be authentic. I want it to
Mhm.
be real. I want it to be genuine, right? Because not every person is going to be a good fit for any of us, right? Like
Yeah.
we're with some people we work really well with, and with other people we don't, and that's okay because we're different, and there's someone for everybody.
Yeah. And when
Yeah.
you're working with something so sensitive, I think you want someone that you can resonate with, that you feel comfortable
Yes.
with, because if you're already uncomfortable, that's just going to add more anxieties.
Yeah, and it's going to add a lot more resistance too. And like resistance is not helpful when we're dealing with nervous system issues. It just
Hmm.
makes things harder, right? And so we want someone to feel like they can be open,
Right.
um, and create that change for themselves.
So do you have any success stories that you could share with us that you've had from one of your clients?
Yeah, I have. I've had a couple of clients that, like, I had one client specifically that changed departments at her job, and she was so much more happy. She had a terrible boss. Like, she did
Hmm.
not like her at all. And I went, is there any way, like, again, we created an option of, like, she had an option of maybe looking for another job, and then she had an option of moving departments, and she did that. And she felt so much better. Granted, there was still some anxiety that she was working through, and but she had a really amazing boss, someone that was really supportive for her, and she
Hmm.
was able to work on the anxiety because some of that burnout decreased because she was able to switch departments at her company. I've had another client that quit her job because it was not a great work environment, and she found another job, and she felt so much better because she, one, worked less, and it
Hmm.
was, and also she was in a better work environment with better people around her. And so, and then I've had multiple clients again just kind of work on boundaries within their relationships to say, I need this, or I want this, or even saying I need more help with this can be
Right.
super helpful, because I think I've had clients that just take on so much within relationships, and they just need to be able to communicate expectations, right?
Yeah.
In relationships. And so that was super helpful for them too.
And even work is relationships, but I know we've talked about work and jobs and burnout and work a lot. Do you
Yeah.
work with people that are, like, say, burnt out or have anxieties about relationships or other things besides?
Yes. Yeah. Because that's a part of burnout. I think careers are like the main, right? But I think people forget that we can be burnt out in other areas of our life as well. Um, Career is the big one. Like that's what we
Yeah.
think of when we think of burnout. And burnout can happen when we're sick of a relationship, or it's not going the way that we want it to, or we're taking on all of the housework and our partner isn't doing anything. Like that will create burnout, because eventually our body's going to be like, this is too much, shut down, and then we go into freeze, right?
Right.
And so being able to learn how to communicate well with our partner, but also realizing what do I need? Like what does my body need so that I feel less overwhelmed, and then being able to communicate that to another person.
Yeah. And do you ever find maybe that the person is creating the burnout themselves just because they're not letting go of things or they're not asking for help?
It can
Yeah.
definitely, and being able to, that's where we bring compassion in, right? To say, I'm now realizing this, I'm gaining insight, and I forgive myself for maybe creating some of this for myself. And I want to do better. I want to create change in my life. And so, how can I do that? Right. And then that's where we teach the skills and the techniques and the coping skills, right, to help someone foster better communication, that have better boundaries and things like that.
Yeah. I know we've mentioned boundaries a couple times. I think that's always one of the big things and important things is we forget we have the control to
Yes.
create to create those boundaries. It's not someone else's job and you can't control everything, but you can control you and what you interact with.
Right. I had one client that would always tell me, like, Gabby, we can't control the weather and other people. I'm like, yep. So who do we have control over? He's like, us. I'm like, exactly. Like we can control us, but everything around here we have no control over whatsoever.
Yeah. I always like the one where everybody tells they think they can control their spouse or their kids or
Nope.
whatever. It's like, nope,
Nope.
just because you're a parent doesn't mean you can control them.
Nope. No, not at all. Because they
Or
are
just because you're a spouse doesn't mean you can control them. You might want to try to influence them to live
right.
better or healthier, but you still ultimately have no control over that.
Nope. Nope. Because they are a person that is not you, and they are outside of you, and they are their own person. And so
Hmm.
you can talk about boundaries. You can talk about needs, wants. Hey, I think this would be better. And at the end of the day, you can only really control yourself and your thoughts
Yeah.
and how you live.
Out of all of those, what do you find is the kind of the biggest challenge that your clients are normally have?
In terms of burnout,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think the career one is the big one, especially because we live in such a fast paced society. It's
Right.
just go 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 go. No
But
time to
is it
relax.
because of boundary issues, or, I mean, what is the biggest? Because some people have trouble with boundaries. Some people have trouble
Totally.
setting boundaries, and some people have trouble saying no. Tell them no is a complete sentence. I mean, yeah.
I think a lot of what I find in clients is people pleasing.
Okay.
And that's a trauma response. So right when we go into our sympathetic nervous system, it's fight, flight, freeze. The last one is fawning, which is a little bit of a more subtle response, which is people pleasing. And so not wanting to upset another person so that so that there's peace,
Hmm.
right? And that tends to be a big block for people, because we don't want to rattle, we don't want to like shake the cake, you know what I mean, right? Like we don't want to
Oh,
rattle.
I do. I do. I'm a recovering people pleaser myself, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
because it
being
really
able
creates a lot of anxiety and stuff with or health issues in yourself because you're busy trying
totally,
to make everything else.
yes.
Yeah.
And so it's really talking to that part of ourselves, realizing where that comes from, and being able to retrain the brain and the body to be like, I can stand up for myself. And that again happens slowly. It takes time to be able to reprocess and retrain that part of us that really is just again trying to keep us safe.
Like,
And
yeah, like a new habit, a new, yeah. And when you do that, people start to notice.
yeah,
People notice the changes.
totally. And again, that's on them. If they have a reaction to that, like that's not
Yeah.
on you because you're doing what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah. I always tell people, don't worry, because if nothing else, you get a whole new circle of friends, a whole
There
new
you
tribe.
go. And they might be friends that like energetically match you more, right? That
Hmm.
are more in line with who you are.
Right.
It's great.
Right. No,
Yeah.
that's incredible. I love what you're doing, and I love that you've been
Thank you.
able to find that way, because there are so many people that are struggling. Because like I say, I call it
Yeah.
a rat race, but it's burnout, it's anxiety. What are some of the signs do you think that you should let people know that could be signs that they may not realize that they're experiencing burnout or anxiety?
Yeah. A lot of it is just physical, emotional, mental exhaustion, right? It is this like sense of dread, like, oh, I don't want to go to work. This is terrible. Like, this is never going to get better. Like, that kind of cynicism tends to be a hallmark of burnout. And it's sometimes hopelessness, helplessness, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, you can't focus, right? Some of these just nervous system dysregulation. But I think the key is that mental, physical exhaustion where you're running on 10 or 20%, but you need to do 80% work, right? And you just can't, right? Like it's just not possible, because you just don't have gas in the tank, right?
Yeah, it's like
Um,
burning a candle at both ends. Eventually, it's going to go.
correct. Yes, exactly. That's a great analogy for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I know it's going to be different for everyone, because some people
of
are very
course.
high achieving, high motivated, and that's the only way they know to function.
Right.
Me personally, I have trouble seeing how how that can be healthy, but for some people, they don't know to function any other way. So I think that's got to be a challenge
Yeah. Is it
to.
healthy? No. And if it's also how someone knows how to operate, then it's again, then people who are those high achieving, they're eventually going to hit a wall because there's only so much that our body can take before it's like white flag. I'm done, right? Eventually, high achievers are going to get there. Unfortunately, like it's just going to
Mhm.
look different. That wall is going to look different for everyone. Like for me, it was what I went through with the pain and looking at my client being like, I don't care. And then for
Yeah,
other people, it might be, it just, there's so many different ways this can manifest. Right. And so just being able, I just want to help people catch it before you get to the wall, because getting to the wall is not fun, nor is
no,
it, nor should it be a place that we should get to. Like, I want to help build awareness so that people can realize these signs before. way
Yeah.
before if possible.
I am right there with you because otherwise we always wait till see tragedy or some kind of trauma strikes, and
Correct.
that makes us stop to
Yeah.
realize that, oh, everything didn't crash, it's still there. If you
Right.
had bills, guess what? They're still going to be there. I mean, whatever was there is still going to be there. And if it's not
Right.
still there, then maybe it wasn't that important.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, no, I have met a couple of people where sometimes they tell me their schedule. It makes me exhausted just to hear it. I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
They appear and they say that they're happy. They don't know how to function any other way.
One of my colleagues in my last job saw 40 plus clients a week. And at one point he went to me, he's like, Gabby, can I get your professional opinion? And I went, yeah. She goes, I'm starting to get back pain. And I went, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. Because again, we're not taking care of ourselves, and there's no way to get rid of this energy that we're taking on from 40 plus clients a week. That's not that we should not, therapists should not be seeing 40 clients a week. Like full
No.
time is like 25 essentially. Like I'm like, you gotta create ways to release some of this because again, our body's gonna create pain from it. It's just
Yeah.
how it works, you know.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your road to recovery with us and how to navigate burnout and anxiety. We have a few minutes left. What would you like the audience to take away from this?
One of my favorite quotes is "Nothing changes if nothing changes" by Courtney C. Stevens, and you can create change. Will it be hard? Absolutely. Will it be worth it in the end? A million times yes. Like you have a birthright to feel good in your body, and there's so much support out there so that you can feel good in your body. Like it's whether it's me, whether it's someone else, like there are so many people that are willing to help, and I just want people to feel good in their bodies. Like if I can just help one person,
Yeah.
I'm happy.
You and I are the same on that one. I was like, if
Yeah,
this even reaches or helps or supports even one person, I'm good. I did my job.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Gabby, so much for taking the time to sharing your journey and all those lessons and tips and what to look for. I greatly appreciate your time. And
Thank you.
anyone listening with us, if you can relate to anything Gabby is saying to you, absolutely reach out to her. As you can tell, she's got a lot of experience in it and she's been through her own journey. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And everyone have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time.